The evening air was cold and heavy with the scent of rain when she knocked on his door. Her hands trembled as she clutched the thin shawl around her shoulders. The small cabin at the edge of town belonged to a man she didn't know, only that he was quiet, lived alone, and had kind eyes the one time she'd seen him at the general store. When the door opened, he stood there, broad shoulders, a few days' stubble, and a quiet authority in his gaze. "Evening, ma'am," he said slowly. "Can I help you?" Her lips quivered. I need a favor," she whispered. "Can you pretend to be my husband? Just for tonight." He stared at her, unsure he'd heard right. But then he saw the fear behind her eyes, the kind that only came from desperation. "Why?" he asked gently. She looked back toward the dark street. "There are men coming. They think I live alone. If they see a man here, maybe they'll leave me be." "Please, sir, I don't have anyone else." For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the wind whistling through the cracks. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said, stepping aside. "Come in." Her name was Clara, a widow, just 24, with 2 small children asleep in the next cabin. She'd lost her husband to fever the winter before. Since then, she worked wherever she could, laundry, sewing, even mending fences for a few coins. Life hadn't been kind, but she kept going because her children needed her. He didn't tell her much about himself, only that his name was Luke. He had a quiet way about him, the kind that made her feel oddly safe. He took the coat off his hook and draped it over her shoulders without a word. "You sit here," he said, pulling out a chair near the fireplace. "If anyone knocks, I'll answer." "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. It wasn't long before heavy boots stomped outside. 3 rough-looking men stood on her porch, their laughter sharp and mean. "Evenin', Clara," one called through the door. "Heard your husband's been gone a while. Thought we'd come keep you company." Before she could move, Luke opened the door. His tall frame filled the doorway. "She's not alone," he said, voice calm but firm. The men looked him over, surprised. "Who the hell are you?" "Her husband," Luke said simply. "You've got about 3 seconds to turn around before I throw you off this porch." Something in his eyes must have told them he meant it. The men muttered curses but stepped back, their bravado fading under his hard stare. When they were gone, he shut the door quietly and turned to her. Her eyes glistened with tears. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes, I did," he replied. "No woman should have to face men like that alone." The rain began to fall, steady and soft against the window. She sat near the fire, hugging his coat tighter around her. "You said your name was Luke," she murmured. "You from around here?" He hesitated. "I've got a ranch west of town," he said. "Just passing through for supplies." He didn't mention that his ranch was one of the largest in the county, or that the boots he wore cost more than most men's wages in a month. He'd grown tired of people treating him different because of his money. Tonight, he was just a man helping a woman in trouble. Hours passed quietly. She brewed coffee, her hands still shaking a little. "You must think I'm foolish," she said. "Asking a stranger for something like that." He shook his head. "No. I think you're brave." Something flickered in her eyes at that word, brave. No one had called her that before. When she smiled, it was small but warm, and it stirred something deep inside him. "My husband used to say that too," she said softly. "He said I was the only woman who could mend a shirt, scold a child, and milk a cow without missing a beat. He sounds like a good man." He was. Her voice trembled again. He was kind, hard-working. Then the fever took him, and she swallowed hard. "Sometimes I think the world forgot I ever mattered." Luke leaned forward, his voice gentle. "The world didn't forget, Clara. It just takes time to notice again." They talked until the fire burned low, sharing stories about the land, the cold winters, the small joys that kept them both going. He watched her as she spoke, how her eyes lit up when she talked about her children, how her voice softened when she mentioned her late husband. There was strength in her fragility, a quiet dignity that humbled him. When her children stirred in the next room, she rose to check on them. Luke followed, stopping at the doorway as she tucked the blankets around their small shoulders. The sight tugged at him more than he expected. "You're good with them," he said quietly. "I have to be," she replied. "They're all I have left." He nodded. "Maybe not for long." She turned, confused. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," he said quickly, smiling faintly. "Just, You deserve more than what life's given you, Clara. Morning came with soft light spilling across the floorboards. The storm had passed, and the world outside glistened clean. Clara brewed coffee again, and they shared it in silence. I should thank you, she said finally. For last night. You didn't owe me anything. He smiled. Maybe I didn't. But I'm glad I was here. As he rose to leave, she found herself blurting, "Will I ever see you again?" His eyes lingered on her. "I reckon you might," he said softly. "If you look west, just past the hills, you'll find me there." Days turned into weeks. The men never came back. Clara's life slowly returned to its rhythm, working, tending her children, surviving. But sometimes, at dusk, she'd glance toward the horizon and think of him. Then one morning, a wagon rolled up to her cabin. 2 men unloaded sacks of grain, fresh lumber, and new tools. "Compliments of Mr. Luke Weston," one of them said with a smile. Her breath caught. Weston. The name she'd heard in town, the rich rancher who owned miles of land. She stood frozen as they drove away, her heart pounding. He hadn't just helped her that night. He'd been watching over her ever since. That evening, as the sun set over the hills, she saw him again, riding down the dirt path on a dark horse. He dismounted slowly, hat in hand, his eyes warm but uncertain. "I came to see if you were all right," he said. She smiled through tears. "I am, thanks to you. But why didn't you tell me who you were?" He looked down for a moment, then back at her. "Would it have mattered?" "No," she whispered. "But I would have thanked you sooner." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Then thank me now." She didn't speak. She just reached out and took his hand, the same hand that had shielded her, the same hand that carried the weight of more kindness than she'd known in years. The world around them was quiet, save for the soft rustle of the wind through the trees. And for the first time since her husband's death, Clara felt something she'd almost forgotten: peace.